Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, hoping to be joined by my co-host, Hall, here soon. He's dealing with a little bit of a weird illness, but the title of today's episode is the Lambeau Bleep, which was everyone's reaction to Thursday Night Football, where Washington lost 27-18 to the Green Bay Packers. And to be able to help us diagnose what happened on Thursday night and looking forward, it's a good friend of this show, ultra-talented man himself, father, Mr. Anthony Armstrong. Thank you for blessing me on this Sunday, sir. How are you doing?
Man, I'm doing pretty good, man. Yesterday I had emceed an event for a nonprofit down here that positively impacts lives for homeless youth, child abuse, things like that. So, we were able to raise over $200,000 last
Wow.
night. So, I'm like riding on that high. That was a great way to
Okay.
finish and kind of wash out Thursday. And maybe Hall has a little lactose intolerance. Maybe that might have been the deal because behind me, the sign says there was some bad cheese in Wisconsin. They recalled all of that stuff, okay? So if you had that cheese in Wisconsin and you were in DC or you were a fan of these daggum Commanders, that's what that gut was that you was feeling. And Mike Hall is finally about to get his out of there.
Yeah, that was fantastic, Anthony, because that you're absolutely right. There was some bad cheese. I'm sure that's what's got Hall at the moment. But speaking of bad cheese, that was, I said it on Twitter, Anthony. You know, we knew going into this week that Green Bay had the youngest roster in the league and Washington had the oldest. And on a short week, I was like, maybe we should have been expecting this, because the energy was just simply not there from Washington, where you saw the Green Bay guys just flying around. In your opinion, what do you think went wrong?
Man, I think it's one of those ones where you think that number one, you just got your butt whooped, right?
You're right.
But considering the age, I didn't think about that. I mean, Thursday is usually a tough day
Yeah.
for those guys when you get a little bit older in those years, long in the tooth. Thursday, you might just about to hit the field. You know what I mean? They give you Wednesday off for those vet days, and then now Thursday, you know what I mean? So I feel like that, that's something to really consider. But you can't use it as an excuse, be like, oh, our guys are just old. But ultimately, that's why I was glad in the end of it. I'm glad that this happened on week two. Like, hey, hurry up and get that Thursday out the way. Now you got this long break. They've been going this whole training camp time period. So, just it's out of the way. It's out of the way. It wasn't a division one. It's a bad loss. You got a long time to wait, before you get to play again. So it's just you run into a buzzsaw sometimes. Age is one thing. I think scheme is another thing. I said this after the fact. Consider this. Green Bay plays against Detroit twice a year, right? Matt LaFleur knows what he's going to get against that team. Since this was week two and a short week, there's a good chance that Green Bay basically prepared for week two more than they prepared for week one. Not disrespecting the Lions, but hey, we've seen these guys. We saw
Right.
them, earlier in 2025. We don't see this other team that often. Let's make sure we're really prepared for week two. And now you can say, well, why didn't Dan Quinn do that? Hell, they're prepared for week one. You know what I mean? Like that's just maybe how they're when you plan it out. You're like, okay, we got to prepare for week one, prepare for week two. I can see Green Bay just being like, hey, let's be a little bit more dialed in for the Commanders because you only get them once, and yeah, they really thumped them. I didn't like the fact they were throwing the ball as much early, just
Hmm.
it was just a comedy of errors, pretty much. One of those, sometimes you have those games and it sucks.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, adding salt into the wound or insult to injury, Washington got plagued with injuries on Thursday night. Want to give well wishes and prayers to Austin Eckler and Daniel Wise, who are Dietrich Wise, who are out for the season. Obviously, his Austin Eckler has an Achilles injury. Wise, I'm not sure exactly what happened with him, but also Jaden Daniels getting an MRI on his knee. Grant Paulson had tweeted that out, I think, on Friday afternoon that he was had a brace on his knee. And then John Bates has a groin injury along with Noah Brown, which is not great signs for Washington. But look, they have a couple extra days to rehab, but groin injuries are never great to hear. But given those injury concerns, Anthony, who's somebody behind them that needs to step up and really carry some weight for him for Washington?
Ooh, wait, on the field, I just need to see more from five, right? There was a lot, at this
Yeah.
point, hey, you're the guy that you're going to be the one that's handling the rock every single play. So, he already does, but it's just we're going to have to see him elevate his play. There was a lot that I'd seen just against Green Bay and a little bit from against New York where he has more time to throw the ball. There are some windows there, but he's just not trusting it all, right?
Mm.
He's going quicker to his checkdowns and letting them do their things. But uh, I'm seeing some accuracy. The accuracy is off, and like I've seen a couple times on these quick screens where like the accuracy is off where it's on the back shoulder and it's making Debo step back, and then by the time he gets going back forward, the defense has now traveled 5, 6, 7 yards, and the blocking's not happening. So there's just some real small details that have to be cleaned up, and it's all from five. Once he looks at the tape and is like, man, put it on this shoulder, let him go upfield. Now that quick screen is getting 7 yards rather than two. He can throw the ball to Terry on some of these plays that he's open. He can trust himself to throw the ball into some of those windows because they're there, but he just has a trust that he has to make those throws. So I'm expecting him to be the one to step up. Obviously, you're looking at the tight end position. Can't anybody else block like John Bates? You know
Right.
what I mean? At that position. So who else gonna step up? Ertz, right? Zach, you got to step up. You know what I mean? You're OG over there. You can't get beat by the DB on those quick screen blocks, right? You got to do that much more. Ben Sinnott, hello, here's your opportunity.
Yep.
Receiver room wise, those groins, that's definitely changed the direction stuff. I saw a lot of slipping up there in Green Bay. So that's a groin thing. So McCaffrey, Jalen Lane, but off the field, offensively, Cliff Kingsbury. I need to see a more aggressive offense. I need to see you come out and throw the ball deep. Tell him, hey, it's double go. All right. Don't even get cute with it where it's like this guy's doing this and then hey, check the back. It's double go. Throw the go to let the defense know that you're not going to just be able to compress on the offense the whole damn game, right? That I need to see an aggressive play call early so they can open things up, and that will help the offense flow a little bit more. So on the offensive side, that's where you got to start. Defensively, it's already been by committee. Losing Dietrich Wise, I think there was a quad injury, probably like a quad tendon or something along those lines, long repair. It's tough for him. That's just going to be by committee. You know what I mean? Like, dude, 280. So we don't have another 280-pound person to put out there. But
Yeah.
if you want me to give somebody to step up even more, I'm going to put it back on 94. I'm going to put it back on Deron Payne. Now Jerry Newton is going to have to step up. He's going to have to get into the mix as well. So he's been a little quiet early. And that's because of, Kinlaw and Payne. Like, I get it. He was hard to get on the field now. So now there's a space. What
Mm.
can Johnny Newton do, right? What else can Deron Payne do? So Joe Witch got to play around with those chess pieces and find a good combination.
Absolutely. Look, we're going to get in some bright spots. There weren't many from Thursday, but there were some. But before we get into that, obviously, you being a former wide receiver, I have my thoughts on what happened on offense for Washington on Thursday night. But what was Green Bay's defense doing to our offense, Anthony? Why was it? Why was the offense so stagnant?
Man, you got to start up front with Micah Parsons.
Mm.
I'm not a fan of them coming out throwing the ball 3 plays in a row when you're getting that guy in a track stance against your rookie, and it wasn't conducive to help your team get a good start, right? Like you did not give yourself a chance to, hey, let's go out here and try to get cute. The thing is, right now the offense is, and I get it. This is when Cliff is going, he just kind of wants to get into his flow and let Jaden get started. But you run a lot of basic concepts, and it's not a bad thing. These are traditional across the league concepts, but everybody knows how to cover those concepts. So when you go from first down to 2nd and 7 and you're not running the ball, and then you find yourself in these, you pigeonhole yourself by the play calling is essentially what ends up happening. So you don't have the physical aspect on the running game. You never tried to set that up, so then nobody's going to respect it when you try to do play action. Nobody's respecting it. They understand your running game is five, right? And so now with Rodriguez and hopefully more with McNichols, you got to run the ball more. I think you're trying to get too far off of that plan that worked last year against Green Bay. I would have said, hey, let's run the balls, try to run at number one, make him play physically before he gets to just sprint off the line of scrimmage every play. So ultimately, I'm going to put it on the play call. And obviously, we got to perform better, but coaches can put him in a better position.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with you. I thought the mindset going in would be that Austin Eckler and Bill would get the run against the Giants with the kind of attacking the perimeter on the ground. Then against
Yeah.
Green Bay, being able to have that power running game with Chris Rodriguez and McNichols getting a plethora of those opportunities just to give those running backs a little bit extra time with it being such a short week. I'm not going to point blame anywhere up, but it's just I would have done things a little bit differently. But to change up just a little bit, Anthony, like who stood out in a really bad situation? I call it a quicksand game. But
Mhm.
who stood out to you?
Um, I honestly had not seen anybody, and I'm it sounds bad. I could just try to throw a name out there, but I would be over here lying, right? Like I
Yeah,
was going back to try to look at the tape and just to see, what was flashing. I could say overall, the way that the defense kept the offense in the game, you know what I mean? It's like when you as bad as it was performance wise, it wasn't as bad as it could have been.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And sometimes in the league, it's gonna be like that, right? It's gonna be like that where, I mean, hell, life is like that where sometimes it's like, man, this could be a lot worse, but hey, we're in it. Like I'm not out of it. We just got to get something going, right? And the offense didn't catch up to what the defense was doing, and then shoot, Green Bay was able to stay aggressive. So it was kind of one of those ones, like I say, you get out coached, you get scouted up real well, and they start to see what you can and can't do, what things you struggle with. Green Bay has receivers that are very quick and shifty. I think that's what was giving Marshawn Lattimore a little trouble. Right, these guys are real quick, shifty. They're doing a lot of things on the move, and it can be tough to cover that stuff. Is he expected to do it? Hell yeah, he is. Hell yeah, he is. But some of this too, also, if you don't get that exact week, you only get 2 days. You only had 2 days to prepare for those guys. So you can make some excuses. It's just you got to put a little check mark and say this is what happened. But I promise you, they moved on from it. They got to move on from it. But also be prepared for that same exact thing, right? Be
yep.
prepared for that same similar type of attack, scheme wise, mentality and mindset and strategy on defense compared to what they're going to do against the offense. But that's what you're going to face up against Max Crosby and crew coming to town. So you're not going to get a week off in the pass rusher department.
Absolutely not. It's a copycat league, as they say, and obviously not every NFL team has the personnel of Green Bay and being able to implement those. But if they're going to see that man coverage a lot, they're going to be running those mesh concepts that motion, and then coming to that out route on Marshawn, which I don't want to throw him under the bus or anything, but not many people had a great game. I'm surprised you weren't going to say Debo and Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz showing a little bit of yak on that turnaround, but his blocking was a
Yeah.
lot to be desired.
See, that's the thing. Like
Yeah.
I couldn't even really be like pat you on the back when I'm like that DB ran through two people on that. They ran through the receiver and then through Ertz that didn't make the tackle. So
Yep.
like that play right there, if I was coaching, everybody's like, well, what play is it? Maybe I'll break it down and post it on X. It was a quick screen, and then the ball was behind. There was a cut split. They went to go press out to the guy. He tried to get outside leverage. He shoves Noah Brown off. Here comes Ertz out of control.
Yep.
He bounces off of him. Debo's finally going upfield, and it's only been like a half a yard gain, if that. And then the tackle happens. I'm like, dog, that can't happen.
No.
You know what I mean? Like that can't happen. But also, what that led me to believe was that was something that they were expecting a look, so they worked it a particular way because they were expecting it to get executed a certain way, and it didn't play out like that.
Right.
So when you start out early and the stuff that you're thinking, hey, we think we're gonna get this look and and it ain't happening like that. Now you're scrambling for answers, and they never found their footing on offense. So it was hard for me to give out any attaboys when like I can commend him for his yak on that touchdown. I can definitely give some love to Debo for what he did too. But overall, don't nobody deserve to have no pat on the back, man.
No.
I gotta be real.
Yeah, with only a 9 point loss, as much as that hints to being close, it truly wasn't. But to wrap this up, Anthony, I only have a couple more questions for you. One, it was Dan Quinn's birthday on Thursday, and so it begs the question: what is the worst birthday present you've ever received?
Oh man. Um man. Yeah, I don't know. I've never played a game on my birthday. So,
Okay.
my birthday usually falls right around spring break and going to getting ready for football, but I can't think of the worst gift. 'Cause, I mean, I generally try to at least ask for something that I like.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, I don't know. Fortunately, I can't say I've had a loss on my birthday, like a game loss. So, I don't know. Dan, you can win this one. I'll give Dan Quinn an attaboy, man. Happy birthday, coach.
Absolutely. And to your to
So,
your credit, that's what I meant like by the energy, because that Debo screen pass that stood out to me on film because we had leaked the offensive line to go out there, and by the time that the offensive line actually gets to the perimeter, the Green Bay already has 6 defenders on the football,
yeah.
converging on Debo, and that's what I meant. Like it was very weird. It was like they never got off the plane. Everyone, it was like it's like if you were drag racing and you have a regular souped up car, but the car you're racing has NOS, and it just seems like there's just two different speeds happening there, and there's not much you can really do about it. But are you concerned at all with the offensive line? Like Micah is one thing, but it wasn't just Micah, in my opinion. Like Brandon, they did line up Micah on Brandon Coleman at times, and he still seems like he's getting used to the left guard spot. There was a couple plays where Badass just happens to look in the other direction. Linebacker reads it and immediately goes after Jaden to force it. Are you
Yeah.
concerned with the O line at all?
Man, like that's that. I think those things are something that you're gonna have to coach up, and that's communication. I mean, there are a lot of fast linebackers over there, and they may have been playing a game where it's kind of a you and me, where it's like, hey, if the center looks this way, then that linebacker can trigger. And you're like, oh, why is he looking away? I mean, they probably identified the mic over there. You know what I mean? So without having the breakdown and the identification, you don't know which way they're set to look. And there's gonna be some points in there. They're gonna talk it out. And they're gonna get some things cleaned up. I think there was some protection communication that was wrong. Um, uh, I think that I think once you see where Micah Parsons at across the line of scrimmage, can probably fry your system a little bit, right?
Mm,
You're like, I got to keep a high inside hand here to support, and then I got to do the bit. Oh shit, there's Micah Parsons. You know what I mean?
right.
So you try to set back and rough get. I'm gonna say they're gonna be okay. I'm gonna say they're gonna be okay. First week, Giants are solid. Second week, the Green Bay showed to be solid. Plus, they got superhero Micah Parsons. They got to set the tone. They got to get some attitude about them. Um, I want to see some physicality coming from up there. I saw some folks mention maybe try to get Wiley in the game to help out Connerly, but he's got to just quickly pick up his speed and get things rolling because this is a very physical league and it ain't slowing down over there at that right tackle spot.
No, and it definitely Micah was able to get some inside moves on him, which has always been something I question because him playing left tackle should be very used to people coming over to your left shoulder, right? But I guess that footwork with playing right tackle was just messing with him just a little bit on the outside there. Now, like I know you kind of talked about the offensive line and the communication and what went wrong on Thursday night football. But what would you say of all the concerns from Thursday night? What would you say is probably the easiest thing that could be corrected?
Effort, effort, right? That's the ultimate
No.
thing that you can control, right? That's why you mentioned Debo's screen. Debo's out there busting his tail to get more yards and try to break something even late because he understands like that's the type of game this is. You look at the game against the Bills and the Ravens. I thought it was over. You
Yep.
can't just pack it in and be like, all right, we got to get back on the plane. I got to like stop. Look, play the game, man. Try to finish this game. Keep putting in that effort because you weren't that far away. So it's you gotta go in there and change your effort, change your mindset. Other than that, communication, right? Talk, 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 talk. Make sure you're on the same page, and remember who the hell you are. You know what I mean? Remember who you are. Don't fall into this, woe is me stuff. I'm not buying into it. I don't want that to happen. You really gotta dig in and just say, hey man, we are better than this. And it starts next week against the Raiders.
Yeah, and the secondary, obviously, they need to step up. There were a lot of blunders there, and something that needs to be corrected. And communication is number one, you could say. Anthony, I can't thank you enough for your time being able to come on here and talk to me after Thursday night. I'm very happy to hear about your fundraiser. It's fantastic to hear about. If you before you get out of here, would you like to plug your social media handle, your show,
Yeah.
but also the charity as well, if it's still open, if anybody would like to donate to the cause as well.
Yeah, man, shoot, I appreciate that opportunity. So actually, I've joined. Well, let's start with City House. City House of Plano. They've been around since the '80s. They have multiple shelters in the area, and then last year they helped serve almost 300 kids from homelessness and child abuse and whatnot. So cityhouse.org, you can go check out that website at Texas City House on Instagram. You can see a couple of pictures from the event. Show wise, obviously doing Believe in Commanders with Scott Jackson. Check that out on YouTube, on Believe Network, or any streaming platform. You can also catch me on the Locked On Network on the Commander
Ooh.
Squad show. That's post game, and then one other one during the week. That's with Nick Ashoosh and David Harrison. So your boy is keeping it busy over here, man. Obviously joining y'all from time to time. So it's always good to tap in with y'all. I forget what else there is, but hey. Y'all want me to MC y'all's gig? Come holler at me, man. That's AnthonyArmstrongSpeaks.com. Check out that website.
My man, I absolutely love the plug, and I'm glad to hear that David Harrison, Nick Eshush went down the right aspect of going down to grab you. I know that your time is very valuable, Anthony. You got a growing family. You have a lot to take care of. So anytime you're able to join us, I absolutely love it, man. I hope you go and enjoy your Sunday afternoon and watching some stress-free football.
Absolutely. Just enjoy it. You can take a nap during the game if you want to.
My
Good
man.
night, man. Y'all be good. Appreciate you.
All right, Anthony, have a good one. All right, everybody, we just spoke with the man, Mr. Anthony Armstrong. He didn't hold back in regards to what went wrong on Thursday night. And there was a lot of issues that you could point to where it was not great. You know, I worked a double on Thursday and Friday. I stayed up for that game, and that was bad. We haven't seen really anything like that from this Commanders team. You could say maybe the first Philly matchup was similar to it. I with Jaden's performance, I would put it with the Bucks game, where the first game of the season, where he just seemed very confused and he relied heavily on his legs, and it kind of made things stagnant. But then they found things a little bit later, but it was like they were just fighting to keep the score close, essentially, and that's what it was like in the Tampa Bay game. Whereas the Philly game, it was like the fourth quarter, the defense just their back went out against Philly, and then Saquon Barkley, busted some things out. But this one was different. They definitely, that energy was not there, and I think a lot has to be said about that screenplay and others where you just didn't see that energy flowing from the football team, which is unfortunate because when you think of the haka of Frankie Louvu in the locker room and everything, that's not what you kind of got on the field, a representation of that, which is what you would hope to be. And Dan Quinn kind of talked about this in his presser of the physicality, the aggressiveness is what their identity is and supposed to be. And that's not really what we got from the game on Thursday Night Football. Some bright spots that I did see that I think that does garner some taps on the helmet is Mr. Dorrance Armstrong, Eddie Goldman, those two. Dorrance Armstrong already has 2 sacks on the year. Last year he finished with 3. Hopefully he could continue trending this in every game and be able to produce in a big way for this football team. But Von Miller himself was actually somewhat of a pressurizing presence. You could say they had to use a chip on him on one play in particular where that third down where Green Bay's backed up into their end zone and Jordan Love has to dump the ball off to their tight end, which ended up being incomplete, and Washington's offense is back on the field, where Joe Witt sends 6. Bobby Wagner gets an open lane at Jordan Love, and the tight end on that play, which was the check down because Jacobs had to come in for pass protection, misses Bobby Wagner. But what happens is the tight end chips Bobby, and which delays his route, and though when he goes out for the route, Jordan Love has already released the ball, and it just falls at his feet because the timing was off. And so the presence of Vaughn showing that they wanted to have a chip on him on third down says a lot about what Vaughn brings to the table. It's just unfortunate that as a collective, as a unit, as a team, they just got their ass whooped. And you gotta take it on the chin, man. It happens. But the one concerning part is that the zone coverage from Green Bay and the pre and post snap adjustments of the DBs, of the safeties that the Green Bay defensive coordinator was employing obviously wreaked havoc. Because I talked about this on Twitter, going against zone coverage, you need to have time to be able to hit zone routes. Like in against zone coverage, wide receivers are going to find the holes and they're going to sit in them. But if the quarterback is pressured consistently and constantly, he's going to get the ball out quicker and quicker and quicker every single time this happens. If you're able to bring four, create that pressure, and get the quarterback to throw faster than he wants to, then he can't wait for those routes to develop. So, as a whole unit, as the offense, it's really hard to point blame anywhere because everything is out of whack. And against zone, if you don't have time, what you want to be able to do is run the ball fundamentally, run it well, and run it up in power game. Being able to get those linebackers off of you, but that's not what was happening. I know Austin Eckler at one point had like 7 rushes for 19 yards. So as a whole unit, it was a massive failure. They were not helping out the defense much, and the defense wasn't doing their best job ever, you could make an argument for, because we wanted to be in man coverage. So they were implementing these kind of man beaters. And then when we were in zone, which is what happened with the Tucker Kraft 60-yard reception, is they just sat back there, diagnosed it, and hit Tucker in the hole in the coverage, and he just runs it loose, man. And as an overall unit, it's not like they were tackling well. And a lot of a energy standpoint, there's a lot to be attributed to it. I know that maybe the short week allowed things to be more chill and everything like that, but when it comes down to it on Thursday night, you would expect that energy to be there with a couple days off. Now, it wasn't there. It wasn't evident. And I'm not going to overly critique Jaden Daniels. It was not his best performance. There were open guys. The point being is not going to be open for very long in the NFL. You have to throw guys open. You've heard this many times. If you see that end breaker coming in, you got to throw it before his foot plants. That way, that ball is there when he is in the open window. It just, the timing was completely off. And it starts with the trenches, and it ends with JD5. And I love Jaden Daniels and what he brings to this football team. But Thursday night, I tweeted this out, and I do agree with it. I'm not going to hold my tongue in this regard. But this is one of those situations where you'd like to see Jaden hype up his team. Like talk to the guys. Be able to hash this out. Because somebody needs to lead them. They need to explain. I know a lot of people will say, these are grown men. They're getting their asses whooped. You shouldn't need to push them. But in all honesty, in life, that is what you need. Even though we are grown men, we have a lot of money on the line. You still need somebody to talk some sense into you, to say, look, this is not what we are. This is not how we conduct ourselves. And maybe Jaden did that off camera. You have to give him the benefit of the doubt. But just from what I saw, it just wasn't evident there, right? And this is one aspect, or one way for Jaden to grow as a leader, and the expectations for your overall unit and your team to be able to help and get them over the hump, because that seemed to be the issue. And this is what I meant in the quicksand type of way. And this is what I think happened. It was a quicksand game. As much as you're trying to get out of it, it's not allowing you to. And I think the Green Bay defense and offense did whatever the heck they wanted to. They had a fantastic game plan against us, and ours was not prepared to take a punch in the mouth. And that's what it certainly seemed like on Thursday. Now, let's go to our fan questions, and this one was submitted by the Colonel. His question is, one of my biggest criticisms of Ron Rivera was his poor clock management coaching. For 2 games in a row now, we've had a couple significant errors by DQ. Why? We made it to the NFC Championship game last year with none of these issues. Why are they happening now? Well, why are they happening now? One being is that, like, the law, right? The natural law that whatever can go wrong will go wrong. Your unforeseen circumstances are going to come up on you, and you got to be prepared for them, and you absolutely should. But you are going to find issues that come up and arise that you weren't expecting and didn't plan for, and it does create mistakes. This happens in every single job, every single occupation on this earth that happens. I know that you're referring to right before the half, and which was the same thing last week against the Giants, was right before the half. And we had 3 timeouts. I can understand from DQ's point of view of not wanting to call those timeouts, because you didn't, just in case you didn't get that 3rd down, you called that timeout before that 3rd down, which gives you, I think about 40 seconds, Colonel, That gives Green Bay 30 seconds and a full thing of timeouts to be able to get down the field, kick another field goal, which inevitably they ended up doing, even with a short amount of time to be able to do it. But the most important aspect of it, Colonel, was that you were driving. You were getting downfield. You needed a spark, and getting a spark before halftime would have been fantastic for this football team of being able to claw their way back. And so I do agree with you that I understand where, from DQ's point of view, why he could have done that out of concern of what giving the ball back to Green Bay with a lot of time left. But you saw what happened on that third down. It was discombobulated. It was all over the place. It didn't seem normal, so to speak. It was very much hurried and forced, whereas you want to take that timeout before the third down to be able to say, hey, this is what we're doing. This is how we're going to get it done. And I would, if the clock management is a concern for you in that breath, then run the ball on 3rd and 4. They're expecting it for you to throw the football. You're 3rd and 4. You want the clock to run out, not to give them enough chances. And, of course, Green Bay could have called a timeout. But that's good. We want them to waste that timeout. We want them to take one of those chances away if they are going to come back down the field. You live and you learn. I just think that just like the players, just like us in our daily lives, we're going to make mistakes. And obviously, Dan Quinn is not really in a position to be able to do so, especially in a loss. But I think this is a growing thing for Dan Quinn to be able to learn from and to get better at. And that's why they happen to you. Not to show what you can and cannot do, but more so for you to learn from. And I think this is one of those circumstances where what's most important is making sure that we convert on that third down. You have 3 timeouts. Let's worry about converting. And if it's 4th and short, go for it. We're at the end anyway because you run the ball. If they don't take the timeout, then liquidate the clock before that 4th down if you are concerned about the time. Otherwise, let's worry about converting. That would be my thing. But why is it happening now, Colonel? Because it's early in the season and it's a growing process. And something is always going to go wrong. Now, the next question from the Colonel. 2 brutal season-ending injuries to starters on both sides of the ball against the Packers. Bill will step into the breach for Austin Eckler. But how will we replace Dietrich Wise? Do you see AP raiding another team's practice squad? Yeah, obviously Bill is going to step up mightily. I also think Chris Rodriguez is as well. I know Bill obviously has the legs to be able to do so. But you don't want to put too much weight on Bill's shoulders. You want it to be a kind of rotation of guys in order to keep everybody healthy. And honestly, that's what I think happened with Austin Eckler. Just a little bit too much was being used on him in a short amount of time. He needed that rest. He needed some extra time and less carries in order for his body to be able to recuperate. And obviously his Achilles went out on him, and I'm not going to put it all on them. I don't think that that's right or correct to do. But I do think that adding the rotation of C-Rod and others and McNichols is really going to help a lot. And we can look to see if maybe they elevate Donovan Edwards at some point to be able to help in the passing and running game as well. But with Dietrich Wise, that is a testy one. Javonte John Baptiste just got elevated this week, was previously injured, and he came in and actually did pretty well. Jacob Martin himself has been fantastic at being able to come in and make a presence. He had a sack last week against the Packers, and he did very well. I thought I was very impressed with him. But Dietrich Wise, in 2 games, you kind of saw what he adds. And that's 6'5", 280 pounds. That is a lean, big dude. And he is going to be a big loss for this football team, pardon me. But this is why you add the rotation, you stock the cupboard full of these kind of defensive ends. And a guy that they had let go in Jalen Holmes, who they picked up off the Jets practice squad last year, I think could obviously be somebody to come back and just knows the system, could come back and help, a bigger kind of guy that could help with this defense. And I hope that they do go down that route because Dietrich Wise was playing fantastic. Had a great week 1 and was obviously huge in helping and trying to help in week 2, and it came up short, of course. But it's going to be hard to do, but there are avenues to be able to help you out just a little bit more. We do got to give credit to Green Bay and what they were able to do to us. You got to take it on the chin, man. Next question we have is from Tony Franchise. Thank you, Tony. He said, I'm not panicking about the loss, but what concerns do you possibly have for the team? Well, definitely the offensive line. Because in particular with the offensive line. Micah is one thing. Micah is going to be able to get after you, especially a younger guy. You can smell fear, and you can be able to do things against them because you know how they're going to play a certain way. The offensive line in particular not being able to run the football, though, is the bigger concern to me. Against the Giants, that was something Washington was able to do. They were able to run the ball effectively, efficiently, and helped take some pressure off of Jaden with those rushers that the New York Giants have. But in this game, it just was not there overall from the offensive line. That is a big concern for me. We still have a couple more weeks until Sam Cosmi can return. But is Sam Cosmi going to be able to hit the ground running? No, he's got to get back into football shape. And look, there's going to be some growing pains alongside there as well. But overall, from the unit, you need to see more consistency from running the ball and pass protecting. As much as that was a good defensive performance with the zone coverage, with the moving of the pre-snap and post-snap, confusing Jaden, you at least need to give him some time, and it just was not there. Where's the chip help? Where are you using and utilizing some misdirection to be able to nullify that speed rush just a little bit? Where's the difference in cadence from the quarterback position to be able to get these guys are jumping the snap? Why aren't we using a different cadence in order to get them to jump off sides just to help you minimize the yardage to get a first down? Like, it shouldn't be so easy to diagnose, but that's where we are at this moment. It was a short week. It is what it is. You have a lot to learn from. But that's the one big thing about this football team is you have to learn from you getting your ass whooped in order for it to not allow it to happen again. The blueprint is obvious with what Green Bay was able to do. It's easier said than done, but we do have to put that caveat. It's easier said than done. You can say that everyone's going to do that blueprint and be able to do what they want against Washington, but the Green Bay defense is legit. What they did to Detroit the week before, that's nothing to shy away from and not to consider. This is a very good football team, and they proved it again on Thursday night. Saying if you don't have all your ducks in a row, you're in for a long time, for a long night, and that's obviously what happened with Washington. So, yeah, that zone coverage, they're moving of DBs around, screwing with Jaden's head a little bit, being able to get after Jaden. That's a legit thing that you are concerned about when you go against these kind of elite units that have the ability to rush for and to create havoc for you. Philly is a good example of that. But am I overly concerned about what happened? Not really, but the concerning avenue is the defense, especially the secondary, after having such a phenomenal week one and just being suffocating to the New York Giants. We saw those big plays happen, and which we weren't really expecting for that to be the case. But it seemed like it didn't matter what the offense wanted to do. They were finding openings there. They were hitting the weaknesses. They were being able to get over top of Bobby, be able to get in between them and the safeties, and be able to hit you long. And give credit to Green Bay. The one game that I always come back to is the Steelers game from way back in the day when Antonio Brown and Ben Roethlisberger were there, where I think it was Monday Night Football. Big Ben gets snapped the ball in shotgun. It hits the ground. Big Ben picks up the ball, doesn't even look downfield, just chucks it in a go route to Antonio Brown, and it hits Antonio Brown in stride. Like, that is insane. Like, you should, without even look, how can you hit that in stride without even looking? And give credit to them, of course, but it seemed like it was one of those nights for Green Bay. That throw to Jaden Reed, even though it was called back, just a perfectly placed ball after Jordan Love had to maneuver in the pocket because the rushers sort of getting into him, had to move around, just delivered a perfect throw football. The defense, you want to be able to see more pressure, and you shouldn't have to add extra rushers to be able to create that pressure. There were at times that they were in sync. They were rushing together and being able to get after Jordan Love, but it's few and far between. And give credit to Green Bay because of how they were running the football. It was creating short downs and distances, so you weren't able to pin your ears back and get after Jordan Love a lot. But this is where it comes into Washington on a play-by-play basis, making sure you're making it difficult on their offense. But Green Bay really put them on their heels and really was hitting everything they really wanted to, which was honestly really unfortunate for this football team. After such a great week one, it seemed like that momentum is slowing down, and that's what I mean by the leaders on the team really grabbing this football team, saying do not lose sight of that momentum. That was on us. We made it too easy for them, We have to do a better job of making it harder. If you're going to do that against us, we have to make it as hard as freaking possible. And they didn't have many penalties, but in short though, that was putrid to watch, Tony. Lots of concerns after Thursday night, but I'm not jumping ship, man. I'm not going to pick on anybody. I do think that Will Harris, Marshawn Lattimore, Mikey did not have a great game. And I do think a lot of that has to do with him getting acclimated to the slot again, which is something I bought into before the season. Because early on, I was saying I don't think that Mikey should have to be pigeonholed to the slot because he improved greatly on the outside. He was fantastic on the outside, but adding of Trey Amos has kind of forced Mikey inside. And we're going to see how Marshawn responds to this and how teams are going to target Marshawn, because obviously Green Bay did heavily early on in that football game. And you saw him losing his cool, and you want him to have more of a better head about him to not get penalties on himself because he's frustrated and giving up plays. Don't do anything after the play, my dude. Do that during the play to make sure that you don't get thrown on. Like, that's the big thing here. But if this continues with Marshawn, you do have to question how long are you going to keep him out there? Should we make that change of to say Marshawn should come into the slot? And a lot of people will say, well, that's where the fastest guy. Not always. They don't always put the fastest guy in the slot. Sometimes they do put the bigger wide receivers in there, and it wouldn't be the craziest idea that Marshawn Lattimore is going up on a possible tight end or running back at this stage in his career. Do you think that he could, in knowing his football knowledge, maybe he can jump on some routes in that sense and be able to create some turnovers there? So would like to see more from Marshawn Lattimore, and especially with Will Harris. After such a great week one, definitely took a step backward. Now the next question is from Command These Nuts, my boy Mike Casa. Thank you, Mike. He said, happy Sunday, brother. Was Thursday a combination of Green Bay being a complete unit already, playing in mid-season form, and us being nothing close to mid-season form and massively out of sync? Or do we have more serious underlying issues? No, I think the younger and older aspect of the team weighs greatly into this. Right? Like, I coach middle school guys, football, tackle football. And those dudes, like when I see them get tackled or something happens, whereas as a grown man, if I was hit that way, probably take me a while to get back up. But no, they're popping right back up. That's what it's like with Green Bay and Washington, whereas Green Bay on a short week being a younger football team, they got the juice in their legs to be able to come out firing. They're not coming out like in a kind of gelling kind of sense like Washington was, like allowing things to inflict onto them. They were the inflictors. They had that energy. Washington, not so much. Obviously, Green Bay was hitting everything they possibly could, and they had a fantastic game plan. I think that Washington was way too predictable in the way that we do things. I don't think that we were switching things up a lot from week one to be able to say, like, this is different than what we typically do. And so it was easy for them to diagnose these sort of plays into beat man coverage. I mean, you saw that on those third downs with Marshawn Lattimore, where they're like, we know they're in man coverage. All right, we see the motion guy. Marshawn's on him. He's not getting off. He's not pushing it off. There it is. Hit that out route. And that happened multiple times. And it was very easy for them to diagnose what Washington was going to be able to do. Let's be more unique, especially at this stage in the NFL. You have to go down to the detail. You want to confuse the offense, and that's not what was happening. They weren't confused in the slightest bit. And the kind of help of that confusion is by pressure, by making him see ghosts, which is essentially what happened with Washington on offense, is that it's sitting in that zone coverage. Jaden doesn't want to turn over the football, and credit to him for not doing it. I think Jaden deserves a lot of credit for that. A lot of young guys who have very big expectations placed on them from everyone else. If you're having a bad game like that, you're struggling, you're trying to get back into it, you might try to do a little bit too much to try to earn that back, which will create turnover-worthy plays. Jaden didn't do that, and give him a lot of credit because he could have done that, and that wasn't the case. So hat tip to Jaden for being wise and being able to make sure that he wasn't putting the ball in a very bad situation for the opposing defense to be able to take advantage of and to make bad matters worse. That wasn't the case. You'd like to see a little bit more from Jaden. And obviously, you have to give credit to the Green Bay defensive coordinator. He really confused him. He really confused him. That pass rush was getting home, and not to any ill credit to Jaden, but it just seemed like it was a snowball effect from the offensive line down. Whereas there was guys open, Jaden couldn't see him because he was reacting to the rush because of what they had been doing play in and play out. And that is just a snowball effect down. You got to give credit where credit is due, and Green Bay's defense was absolutely suffocating Washington on Thursday night, especially on offense. We got our shots in, but it was few and far between than what we absolutely needed. So I think it comes down, Mike. It comes down to the youth of Green Bay playing on a short week. I know myself included. I didn't really care all that much that Washington is an older team. It really is not that much of a concern until it's a short week. Then it is something to be worried about because that is a natural human thing that younger people have very much more juice in their step when stuff like that happens. They can very much, like my son, for example, the dude can just run around, bang his head, keep running around. Like, he's young. That's what he can do. Me as an old man, if I bump my head, I'm really rubbing on it a little bit, like, oh, that hurt. That's kind of what Washington looked like on Thursday night, Mike. And it's just it's all about fixing this and understanding that, myself included, as much as I am being harsh against Washington right now, and obviously the people out there will point out that it's very much due to be harsh on them right now. But I do understand that team that we saw on Thursday night is not who they're going to be against Vegas. And I really believe that. It's not much more so of thinking or hoping. I know that because I've seen how they play. I've seen how they want to implement their identity. There was just a big separation on Thursday night of that identity. And I think a lot of that has to be attributed to the short week and the quick turnaround and this team just not being prepared for that stage, which is unfortunate for us fans, because we have been riding a high for a very long time. And this game was very out of character for this football team. But I truly believe that come Vegas next week, we're going to see a completely different team. And I know that to be the case, Mike. Now, the next question we have submitted, this one was on the Discord chat. This question was submitted by Scott Hartley. Did we come up against a buzzsaw in Green Bay, or was it just one of them nights? That was definitely a buzzsaw. Green Bay, especially the Matt LaFleur, right? He comes from the Sean McVay coaching tree. Having the concepts, especially the route concepts, to beat certain defensive formations, and they absolutely had them dialed up. And give a lot of credit to Jordan Love. Very accurate quarterback. Bigger dude. Washington was just not playing the way that they typically do, but they had a great game plan in order to beat those kind of concepts on defense. And so it was a buzzsaw in the sense that Green Bay is playing very well. They came in with the right mindset, the right game plan. They had the youth to them, and it very much was a connection of those two things that created a strangulation for Washington overall. So as much as I would like to say that it was just one of them nights, which of course it could be, but I also am under the realization that there was multiple reasons for why that transpired. And it's not just one thing in particular, but it's a lot of credit to Green Bay playing very, very well. Washington not having the greatest amount of youth that they possibly having. And you can even speak to the fundamentals defensively. Like Trey Amos coming up to make that hit on Jordan Love and just throwing a shoulder at him, which ended up, I think pretty sure it ended up injuring him. And then Frankie Louva just running right by it. I mean, it's like with Frankie, you like that he plays with his hair on fire. But you also have to be able to make the tackle, right? Like, I understand that they're protecting the quarterbacks, but that guy was flexing on us, and that was a legitimate highlight that they were using because you ran right by it. Like, you got to come in and make that play. And that goes for all of the defenders. There were a lot of situations on Thursday night where they just did not do what they were supposed to do. Now, next question from Scott Hartley. Which area of the team most concerns you moving into week 3? O-line, pass rush, running back, or coaching, something else? Coaching, not so much, because Cliff Kingsbury believes that it's the players, not the plays, right? And that I do put credence into. I don't think that it's like saying that Washington's roster is like very bad or anything like that. I just think the energy simply was not there from Washington. And the adjustments need to be made quicker in the sense that they were running hitches, they were running these in-breaking routes to be able to combat zone coverage, but the offensive line was just giving up things, was just allowing the pressure to get home very quickly on Jaden, which threw the timing off of everything. And so that's when you start seeing that Jaden's throwing the checkdowns quickly, getting the ball down because he's like, the pressure's going to get to me. I have to make a decision quickly in order to not have 10 sacks in this game, which inevitably is what you saw, even though there were things open. And when he did target Terry, they'd be out of bounds. They'd be inaccurate footballs. But when Terry was throwing the football, he made sure he caught it and moving the chains. It's unfortunate that we like to pick on people, but it is what it is. We live in a kind of weird society in that sense. Thank you, Scott. I appreciate it. Virginia Tech fired Brent Pry, and it's terrible to see what happened to Virginia Tech, man. The next question, this is from Tim Towner. Will Eckler be brought back next year, or do you think his playing career is over? I would imagine that Eckler is probably looking beyond football at this point, right? He already has his podcast. He already has his show that he's doing. An Achilles injury is very difficult to come back from. We know this from the Junior Gillette saga, where he tore his Achilles, working really hard to get back to it, ends up blowing his other Achilles. Like, you don't want to have that sort of thing happen with Eckler. So I would imagine Eckler, all credit to him, is going to be looking to make sure that his Achilles is just good, and his whole body is just good on from here on out. I would imagine that his eye is probably on the door, which is unfortunate. If he is healthy 100%, maybe you keep him stashed in case like something happens to that running back position. You just need some more bodies and somebody that's used to Anthony Lynn in this offense, and yeah, you go plug him. But I would imagine that we were already talking about this with Eckler's concussions last year, Tim. You know that very well. So the Achilles just makes it a little bit worse, especially with the running back position and their need to be able to use their legs. All right, everybody, that's going to wrap us up for this episode. The Lambeau Bleep, it's unfortunate, but these are growing things. You get your ass kicked to be able to get up and fight again another day. And I'm very looking forward to how this football team rebounds against Vegas and making sure that whatever that was on Thursday night is not who they are. And typically you have to be able to get through a month of the season to be able to find out who a football team really is. And I'm very excited to see how they come out in these next two games because it's unfortunate. You know, my pastor is a Vikings fan. He texted the group chat saying, let's go Commanders on Thursday night, you know, and that's what we come out with. But credit to Green Bay. They punch us in the mouth. We were like Nate Robinson in the boxing ring, clinging on to the ropes. Make sure that's not the case every time. Yeah, and I fully trust that they won't be. All right, everybody. Made it this far. You're a freaking champion. I appreciate you all. If you have any questions, feel free to submit them on Twitter, on IG. Send them via DM to us at the Burgundy Zone. You could find us on IG and Twitter. Also, you could join our Discord chat to be able to add some questions in there if you'd like to. We'll see you guys again this week. I'm not sure exactly when, but we'll try to figure out a good time for everybody. All right, guys. Have a good week. Have a safe one. Washington football. Woo! What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support. Until next time.